a lifestyle change. And took me a while to accomplish it, but I did that, and I believe in it, and that's why it works. Because you can't, as we all know, you can lose 20 or 30 pounds and put it right back on. It has to become part of your lifestyle in order to work.
You have to become it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how habits work. You first make them and then they make you.
yeah, and again, it's not just about losing weight. It's about maintaining energy levels, and I'm I feel better now than I did 20 years ago. I go in for a health exam and blood work, and everything is much better than it was.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I am super excited, elated to have a very special guest to the show, Scott Trumpolt. He is a global expert in compensation and total reward strategy. Now, that's over 30 years of HR leadership and consulting experience. He, as founder of Trumpolt Compensation Design Solutions, he specializes in crafting customized base pay, incentive programs, and career architecture that is aligned with business goals and whatever the employee engagement needs. And he comes in and customizes and tailor it. So it's pretty amazing what he does. He's worked across industries such as aviation, healthcare, IT, and logistics, and so he has a global presence. I'm really excited to have him on here today. He delivers data-driven solutions that not only attract but motivate and retain top talent. That is rare to come by. So I'm excited. With no further ado, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lanid. Thank you for having me on your program to address your listeners and your viewers.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure and I'm excited. We love a hero's journey. So tell us how you got started. I know you have over 30 years of experience in the space, but then you went off and started your own.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to start, or just right before that. I was in the corporate world for many years, and my last stop was actually working for the parent company for the US company I was working for over in Germany. And I was over there only about a year, and I was working in what was called the Center of Excellence. And it was to do with compensation, but it was just a timing thing. I felt that I had gone as far as I could from a leadership standpoint in compensation. But more than that, I really felt as though I was doing less of what I wanted to do. The higher you go up into the pyramid, the more you get buried in paperwork and other issues other than what you love to do.
Yeah.
And you need to have passion at all times for what you do. And I knew that going out on my own, which is 13 years now, I've been on my own, 12 and a half, 13 years, I was able to rediscover that passion because I love to design and I love to work directly with people to develop solutions. So that's what I do all the time now. And I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, I can actually attest to hitting that glass ceiling, right? When you stop doing the things that drove you in the beginning,
Yeah.
and you're buried in paperwork and in the decision making and actually spearheading or steering people to it. So I understand clearly what that felt like. So for you, that was the motivator to say, okay, it's time to go back to the basics and do the things that I do love. And that's right now you're currently doing B2B with a lot of the clients.
Yeah. And the other thing that's great about it, and you alluded to this in the introduction, was the opportunity to work with, when you're working for a company, you're working for that company. You might have some exposure, cross-business exposure to other companies. But as an independent consultant, I really had the opportunity to work with a variety of clients, company sizes, industries, because the kind of things that I was providing, while they needed to be customized, it's universal, whether it's globally or here in the US. I've had the opportunity to literally travel to China and to work on a compensation project over there, down in the Caribbean, in Europe. So things have kind of changed since COVID, and I haven't done too much traveling, but that's okay because we can do so much remotely.
Mhm.
And that was another consideration being a consultant. Can I do this from home? Can it be successful in that regard? And it has been.
Yeah, because it's true what they say, right? The competition is not next door. It's overseas. It's across the ocean. It's
Yeah,
global.
it is. It's global. It's here too, but it's everywhere.
Let's talk about compensation a little bit and the strategies that we can use in today's workforce because a lot has changed. As you alluded to COVID, people are motivated differently now. A lot of people are looking for hybrid work, and so a lot of compensation plan have to be flexible with the
Mhm.
with the changing work environment. So let's talk about that. How do you tailor it to make sure both parties are happy? We're talking about employees and employers.
The key thing now, human resources has different areas. You have training, you have recruitment, you have benefits, compensation is part of the human resources equation. But what ties them all together is this idea of employee engagement. That's how human resources becomes a true strategic partner to the business. And it also links in the employees. Because if you have a more engaged workforce, your business results improve. This has been shown time and time again. So it's very broad and in very general terms when I'm speaking, but it's important to understand this. Whatever type of structure that I build or any type of compensation project that I work on, the first thing in my mind is how does this tie into the concept of employee engagement? Because if it doesn't, I'm heading down the wrong path. So that's really crucial. And so what I look at in today's world is what are employees really interested in? Yes, they want to get paid appropriately. And there's a lot of movement now, and the younger generation wants to have more transparency to pay. There are various state laws that are occurring now in various states to promote this idea. But that is really an opportunity for businesses because what employees are essentially saying is, okay, this is fine. I know what I'm getting paid right now, but how do I grow myself in the organization? And so what I do is, and you mentioned this at the outset, I link pay structures to career architecture, job classification, because it's a way to create a dynamic. People are often not nervous, but they're a little bit standoffish about talking about pay. Pay is something very much that's been in the shadows, in a box, so to speak. And one of the ways to bring it out, especially with these new pay transparency laws, is to focus the dynamic on the career development aspects, because obviously, as you grow your career, you're going to make more pay. So employees are interested not only in what they're getting paid today, but how can they grow their skill set? And we want to do that, getting back to the business who wants the employee engagement. We want to align it also with what the future business needs are going to be. So if you can pull those two pieces together, you've got part of an employee engagement plan from the compensation perspective. So that's crucial about how I think about things. It's not just a bunch of numbers within a pay structure. Yes, I use market data to see what different jobs pay, but I'm not just looking at the jobs that people are doing right now. I build structures that are very robust in the sense that it brings in all of the future possibilities. Also, sometimes employees need to move laterally to get certain skill sets so that then they can move upward. So again, the type of structures that I build are focused on this aspect of career development, linking it to market-based pay because that's what employees want. They don't want something that's very subjective. They want it to be as market-based as possible. They want to have transparency to that. But what I'm trying to do is pull the career development piece in there because then they can have a conversation with their manager, not just about their pay, but more importantly about their career development and what is the business needs are, what are those business needs down the road? And when you have your immediate manager and the employee talking about such things, that spurs employee engagement because the immediate manager is the most important person to the employee at the company. So let's leverage that kind of relationship and give them tools to make that happen. So that's how I think about compensation. It's
Yeah.
this whole idea of employee engagement.
And it's needful because you do have a different generation that's going into the workforce, right? You talk
Yeah.
about the younger generation. They're not their mom and dads. They're not the baby boomers who's gonna commit to 40 years to working for you. They are coming in saying, okay, what's in it for me?
Right.
Right off the bat, and so they're looking to, okay, 10 years. It's very hard to retain them into a
Mhm.
role for that long, and so I think your approach is ideal as a way to look at the holistic picture, to kind
Yeah.
of get them to the door, but also think, how can they grow with us? How can we stay innovative, that they want to stay? How can we utilize their skill set to change the business? Because the dinosaurs, the bigger companies, they're really not privy to that.
Well, think about it for a minute. You, as an employer, if you want to be an employer of choice, we all hear about these companies that they've won these awards for being employer of choice. What they're doing, the reason they're getting those awards and competing for them is they're moving the needle on employee engagement. So they get this concept. The other thing too is pay transparency can actually backfire for young employees in the sense that a lot of states are passing these laws to say, okay, here is the broad range that we will pay you for. And the employee or the potential employee looks at this and it's very static. They'll say, well, this doesn't really answer my questions. There's a whole range of options here. Where do I fit in here? That's where the career development piece needs to come in, because actually it's kind of like a dead end.
Hmm.
The way that the states are approaching this, I believe it's nice because it forces some companies to get on their toes a little bit more about getting their compensation house in order, which is great.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are doing great things where they're looking at doing internal equity reviews and making sure that people are getting paid appropriately for the work they do, regardless of any other issues. And so it's very important, though, I believe, that this pay transparency thing be taken to its natural conclusion and not just list a pay range on an advertisement. But when you've got them in the door and you're thinking about hiring them, how do we grow this person and how do we link it back to the market so they have better transparency? They want to understand why they're getting, not just what they're getting paid, but why they're getting paid this and where this can lead them to, so they do stay at that company.
Yeah, I find it that, correct me if I'm wrong, that really impacts like county workers, government workers, big time, because it's harder for a private company to then adhere to those rules and regulations, because they're all looking at equity. They're all looking at those things that you mentioned to effectively compensate top talent, because they want to keep them. They want to get them in the door. But I do see there's a discrepancy or the difference with let's say teachers, right? Like then they have that transparency with the county, and you see the payroll, but there's it really, you do feel stuck at times
Mhm.
at that level.
Yeah, well, now the states are trying to have these companies, as you're talking about, not the county government, things like that, who have already been doing that, but they're trying to have the private companies, post these ranges in different states, and that's all well and good. But like I said, if it's not really held to its logical conclusion and played out in a dynamic with career development linked to market-based pay, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but this is really important because it could be a turnoff in a sense. People just automatically think, well, I should get the highest point in that range without any understanding of how they fit into that.
Hmm.
So if we can provide tools, not just myself, but others who do this type of work, then more than half the battle will be solved.
Yeah. There is um, lateral moves. A lot of people I've heard in my group talks about, the fastest way to make a 20-30% raise is to do a lateral move, a career shift in that way. What's your take on that? Because you're in the business of retention and employee engagement.
Well, the thing is that in the corporate world, you have to wear so many different hats. And so a lateral move will oftentimes, I worked in a corporation, a very large logistics company, And so that would be natural for people to grow in the organization who didn't have a specialization in a certain area. They might understand some parts of logistics, for example, but they didn't understand the international customs brokerage area. So they would move over to that role. They may get a minimal pay change because it's just a lateral move, which means basically a job of comparable value. But they'll then be able to move up because now they've increased their skill set through practical application. So that's why lateral moves are important. Don't always think upwards. Not everybody wants to be a people leader. They might want to be a process or a project leader, and they can grow on that track as well. But sometimes it's helpful to go sideways because again, you're gaining skills. And I talked earlier about the business need. Well, a manager should be in a good position. A manager's not going to lay out your whole life career plan for the next 10 years. But what they can tell you at least is what the business needs are going to be evolving over the next few years. So you can keep yourself ahead of the game, perhaps by going laterally, getting additional skills that you're not going to get sitting in your current job, and then move further up the organization because you've got a deeper skill set. That's more value to the business.
It's a more strategic.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about companies who are global. There's a lot of companies with offering remote work. Now, how can companies adapt their compensation plan to meet this need?
So you're talking about companies that have employees working remotely,
Remote,
you mean
yeah,
overseas?
remotely within the states, but also overseas. Usually overseas, some of them are contract workers, so the compensation can look different for it. But
Yeah,
adapting compensation for, let's say, remote workers.
yeah. Well, within the United States, let's take that for example. One of the things that I do is say I build a pay structure. I will build that pay structure initially based on the United States national cost of labor average, the overall cost of labor. Think of that as 100%. But then the organization may or may not have offices in different states that have a different cost of labor. Okay. So for example, I live in Florida. Well, you're in California,
Yeah,
aren't you?
San Diego, yeah.
Okay. High cost of labor. In Florida, where I live in Coral Springs down in the Fort Lauderdale area, it's right around the national average, but you go up to northern Florida and the cost of labor is less. Okay. So when it comes to remote employees, the business has to make a couple of decisions. And one of those is the employee wanting to work remotely out of personal preference, or is there a real business need to have that individual in a different part of the state or in another state? That's what's key. So for example, if you're a remote salesperson, you might have a territory that's far away from the corporate office. So naturally, you want to look at the cost of labor where that individual is located. So essentially, one of the things that we do, which has been around for some time, is we adjust the pay based on the cost of labor. If I was here in Fort Lauderdale and suddenly I got transferred to Los Angeles, the cost of labor is 15, 20% higher. Cost of labor, I'm not talking about cost of living, I'm talking about cost of labor. And so then the question becomes, are they going out there out of their own volition, or is there a need? Do we need to recruit someone locally in this area, or can we transfer an employee out there to cover that? So again, getting back to the business need, balance with the need of the employee. So there's nothing wrong with remote work. As we all know, we can do a lot of work remotely via meetings, email communications, everything else. But again, whether or not we offer more pay for working remotely depends upon also linking in the business need.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that answers that.
It did, yeah, because then you're looking at the, I love that you look at the business needs to see, okay, do we need to hire someone local or can we actually transfer somebody that we've already trained? Because onboarding can be quite expensive as well.
Sure.
So you have to weigh that option if you do decide to hire somebody local. Is it cost effective?
Absolutely. But again, and companies are still, especially since COVID, there was remote employees before that, but they're trying. I have a client, for example, that I visited today, and what they do is they have the employees come in on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and then they work Thursday and Friday from home. But when they work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they bring in lunch for them every day. So there's various, now I know you're talking about fully remote, but there's also some hybrid models
Yeah.
out there that's saying, and so from a compensation perspective, the challenge always to me is, are we competitive based upon where that individual is going to be located? Or does it matter at all? Maybe they just want to live in a different state for whatever other reason, be close to family or something else. And that's not benefiting the business. But oftentimes it does benefit the business.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you speak, there is that need to be agile. There is that
Yeah,
need to be flexible on both ends of the spectrum. We
sure.
can't be too strict, employers.
Yeah.
Let's
And
talk
they
about,
know that. And
yeah.
they look at those issues. A lot of companies have a full-scale mobility department, not just for overseas employees, but even for some issues when they're transferring employees. Because again, the cost of labor in different parts of the United States can vary quite a bit. It's a real thing.
For employee engagement. Now, let's talk about how that can be positively influenced by compensation or rewards. I know you mentioned earlier that was a good example of bringing in lunch. It doesn't always have to be monetary. It doesn't, there's other ways of putting in reward and compensation in there to get employees engaged. One of the ones I found out is where the company 100% benefit is paid for.
Mhm.
That's a big compensation. That's a big
Well, that's benefits, but yeah, it's huge.
yeah, it's
It's
huge.
huge.
And so let's talk
Absolutely.
about that, how that positively impact employee engagement.
Well, again, from an employee engagement standpoint, compensation only goes so far. It's when you can link it to other aspects of the total rewards model, like career development. However, depending on the type of organization you have to look very closely at variable pay as well as fixed pay, bonus incentives. And a lot of it depends upon if you're a new company or a startup company that's trying to make an imprint into the society, into the workplace, your company, with whatever it is you offer, whatever product or service you offer, you may offer a lot of variable incentives to encourage growth and development sooner rather than later. Whereas in a larger company, maybe base pay is king and your business model doesn't fluctuate that much. So the idea of fixed versus variable pay is also very important from an employee engagement perspective. And a lot of that comes down to the type of company that you're in. Where are you in the life cycle as a company? Are you a fully established company? Are you a startup company? I worked for a startup for 3.5 years. And right when I came in the door, they gave me stock options. Okay. Because they're trying to build something and they want to retain you for the long term. So it made sense for them to do that. Whereas in a very large corporation that's very well established, that piece might only be reserved for top executive level employees. So again, it depends on the culture of the organization, the business mission, even with incentives. Are you operationally focused? Are you customer focused? Are you financially? That's the main piece. I mean, that's all going to focus on your variables pay. So another big piece that I do a lot of work in is the variable piece. Some companies, not all companies, pay market competitiveness. A lot of people think everybody pays competitively. Some companies purposefully pay lower on the base, but higher in incentives because they want to encourage that kind of variability. They want to see their company grow. And they feel that the best way to do that is to provide rewards where there's some risk. You may or may not get it, but the rewards can be greater for that. And so different plans need to fit into that and need to be designed appropriately. That's the thing. There is compensation and then there's how you apply it. And it all depends upon the organization, the company culture, how they do what they do. It all factors in.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that clearly. Thank you for clarifying it. Let's talk about some of the habits that you have put in place for not just your morning routine, as you mentioned earlier. You actually have some throughout the day that you follow and go through to help you optimize not just your energy, but optimize your day. Let's talk about your morning routine.
Well, the biggest one absolutely is walking, and I mean steps, lots of steps, like 14, 15,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly in motion because I found when I first started my first couple of years in the independent consulting world that I was getting a lot more sedentary than I had been when I was in the corporate office. Because at least when you're going into a corporate office, you have to walk around, go to different buildings, different departments. I wasn't doing any of that. I was putting on weight and I didn't have as much energy. And so I got on this plan of just whenever I could, not a daily 20-minute walk or something like that, but throughout the day getting steps and making it part of my own life plan was very important for my energy levels to clear my head. As far as a morning routine, one of the things that I like to do is be productive right away. And the best way I know to be productive right away is to go right outside my door and feed the squirrels and the birds. I do it every morning because it gives me a sense of accomplishment immediately. I know they're counting on me. It's not that they can't get their own food, but it just makes me start my day like, hey, I'm already contributing.
Yeah.
So that's my big morning routine. Other than that, the thing about being an independent consultant is it's not all about waking up early and 9 to 5. I could be working on a project at 12 midnight, depending on time changes. I may not wake up in the morning till 10 or 11, depending upon my schedule, because I was working late that night. So it's not fixed in that way. It's much more fluid. And I work in bunches, in buckets of time, and then spread out beyond that. So not so much of a morning routine as it is breaking up my day in a way that's very flexible, and I get the amount of stimulation and exercise that I need to keep me at optimal levels.
It's a lifestyle shift.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. It is a lifestyle change, and took me a while to accomplish it, but I did that, and I believe in it, and that's why it works. Because you can't, as we all know, you can lose 20 or 30 pounds and put it right back on. It has to become part of your lifestyle in order to work.
You have to become it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how habits work. You first make them and then they make you.
Yeah, and again, it's not just about losing weight. It's about maintaining energy levels, and I feel better now than I did 20 years ago. I go in for a health exam and blood work, and everything is much better than it was 10, 15 years ago.
And I believe you. And that was my follow-up question. What is that pace, that autonomy, that work when I feel I am turned on, real rest when I need to rest? Because not a lot of people have that luxury. What does that do to your nervous system? Clearly, it gives you more energy, and your blood work is a lot better. But let's talk about that a little bit more, so people get an idea of the importance of it.
It's a process. It took me a couple of years to adapt myself. But if the one thing human beings are really good about, it's adapting when they have to. I just knew that I need a different approach than getting in a car, driving into an office every day. And I found that it's very simple, but again, it needs to be done consistently. And as far as my nervous system, at first it was a challenge to adjust. But again, it's the idea of repetition, and it becomes part of who you are. It just does
Yeah.
for most people. And so you have to find something that works for you. That's the thing. I'm not saying that getting in a lot of steps every day is the answer for a lot of other independent consultants, but you gotta have something. You gotta have a way of breaking up your day. Just sitting 9 to 5 in front of a desk doesn't work as an independent consultant. It's not just about I have to work sometimes when I'm not inspired or anything like that. I'm not an artist. I have to put in the time. My clients will often dictate my schedule, but you have to look at things that you do have some control over that you can make part of your daily routine. That having that daily routine is a replacement, a substitute for what you used to do.
Yeah. And then
in a different way. It's the
Yeah.
same, but it's just done in a different way. I'm not going into the office. I don't have to be at my desk at 9 a.m., but I do other things to create the semblance of routine
Yeah.
that work for me in this environment.
That makes perfect sense, and I love that you threw in there that you have to believe it, but you have to find something that works for you and own it. And that is
Yeah.
absolutely true because it's gonna look different from everyone else. And you got to know your body archetype too,
Yeah.
chronotype, right? You got to know, well, you're a night person or an early bird. Like, what does that look for? Do you need a nap midday? It really just
Yeah.
tuning in to hearing what works best for you, and then just go with it. And it'll be easier too if to
Yeah.
adapt to that, if you kind of know this works for me, that doesn't, but I'm gonna do what works.
Yeah. And again, you're replicating the structure that you had in the sense of having a structure. It's just a different structure.
Right.
So there are those things that I do every day, like I talked about, to give that semblance, because you don't want it to be too herky-jerky. You want things that you can rely on. And now I'm getting more to understand your question even better. And hopefully I've been able to respond in the sense that routine doesn't go away. It just becomes different routine.
Yeah.
And when you find that sweet spot, your nervous energy or things like that settle out and it becomes normal.
Right. It becomes your new norm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Scott. That is quite insightful. Please tell us, how can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
Well, one of the best ways is on LinkedIn, and I have a profile page out there. And another great way is my website, which has been redesigned this year. It's got some great AI features, and it's got a lot of information about what I do and the clients that I've served. And I have a lot of my media out there. So it's a great way to get to know me. And I have a book coming out probably in another month or so. So I'll be doing some more podcasts to promote that, to promote that book. Maybe I could even come back on your show at some point. I know you have a lot of guests to come and things like that. But yes, LinkedIn and www.hrcompensationconsulting.com. Perhaps you'll put that in the video when it comes out.
Of course. Do you mind sharing the name of the book?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. It's a surprise. The anticipation. We love
Yeah.
it.
But I will send it to you as it gets a little bit closer to publication. I will remember this. In fact, I'm making a note for myself and I will send it to you.
Perfect. Scott, it's been amazing having you here, sharing about solutions and compensation and reward and how that is tied to employee engagement. We tend to forget that. And so I really value your insight, and thank you for coming today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.